Now, I told you to be watching this trend line. We're coming back to it to tag it. I told you to be watching these lows over here. They intersect right there. Where did we go? Where did we go? Right to the trend line. This head and shoulders pattern, and the risk is that we end up dropping back down to the 74,000 area. That's this blue line right here. That's the previous peak at 73,700. 74,000 is just right above it. Our 200 period may come in right at that level if we end up dropping that much. And again, it could be, as I keep saying, that we have an ABC structure. And again, maybe it finishes here or a little bit lower near a 100 period moving average or just beyond the 100 period moving average, and we don't reach that level. Okay, but we could bottom a little bit lower, or we could bottom right here, and maybe with the PPI or CPI inflation data this week. Moving towards the Trump inauguration, we very well could see the rally continue, extending the election results rally. The crypto community celebrating that Trump won. They like Trump's crypto policies. Could give us the final phase of the blow off top. Now, maybe we find support here. Listen carefully. Maybe we don't. Again, the 100 could be tested. It was tested back over here and we overthrew it, but I talked about that and we bounced off of it. Okay? Risk is that we either have a top at the trend lines of resistance, it stops making new highs, all the weekly signals turn bearish and remain that way, and we end up losing the 20-week moving average, losing the 100 here, staying below them here in the daily time frame, the 100 period of support. The bullish case is that we bounce here just above the 100 or go down and move just beyond it or tag it and bounce off that 100 period moving average. Bitcoin's now dropped almost 18% from the high. At the trend lines I told you about when we were rallying up towards them, I told you we were going to rally up to those trend lines and probably see a reaction off of them. We had to clear those trend lines if we were going to get an immediate peak upper channel line on the weekly chart. We were not able to do it. We ended up dropping back below the trend lines, and I warned you at the time when we were getting when we tried to get above it and it failed up at those trend lines. I warned you, which I'll show you in a moment. I put out a red alert video telling you that we were getting a reaction off of those trend lines. Now again, the herd told us, nah, no way we're gonna drop nearly 18%. Nah. Now they're all turning bearish. Oh, we got a head and shoulders. We're all going to die. Ah! People get so emotional. Could we get a bigger sell-off? Yes. Great Scott, did you hear what I just said? Could we get a bigger sell-off? Yes. Look at the log scaling. This is a linear scaling. If we look at the log scaling, there's another trend line below this area, below the 100 period moving average. It's possible we move back there, but still think we have an ABC move. I think we'll get the final phase with the wave 5 to complete the blow off top. Everybody turning bearish now, right now. People telling us, oh, boy, 200,000, Bitcoin 250, 300, 350,000, 500,000. People get very emotional. They get extremely bullish at tops. They get extremely bearish at bottoms. We're likely going to form a bottom surrounding the 100 period moving average. Could this be it? Maybe. Around these trend lines, I told you to watch for it. We're trying to get a bottoming tail at the moment, but the close hasn't happened yet. Get the PPI inflation data tomorrow. The 10-year yield, if it starts coming down, we could see Bitcoin and the markets try to rally. The 10-year yield is rising because of expectations of inflation. That if we had continued to rally above that trend line, inauguration day might be a sell the news event. Well, we sold off. All the signals turned bearish, and then we got the counter trend, and we turned back down, and daily signals have been consistently bearish. The 4-hour chart has been consistently bearish. Because we've had the December sell-off going into inauguration day, it could be that reignites the election results rally, the Trump pump that it's being called on social media. We broke out and we back tested right before election. Signals turned back to bullish breakout. And again, if we can rally back up, get above 77,000, we can go much, much higher. We cleared and catapulted right above 77,000 with the breakout, and that really validated it in the weekly time frames, validated this breakout. We're likely still going to move to 120 to 125,000. We're starting to see some weakness with momentum in the weekly time frame. You're going to get another push higher, complete a top. And again, the herd telling us, oh, no, we're going to be saying, now they're turning bearish, but they were saying, all of them, but a lot of them are turning bearish now, but, turn bearish after the fact. When the negative divergences were forming up here, they were extremely bullish. I've warned you about the negative divergence slamming into the trend lines of resistance. And all I'm trying to say is, look, when we go up, and we go up to 120,000, 125,000, which I think we will, going to be extremely bullish, just like they were over here. But again, we're likely going to top and complete the final phase of the blow off top, that next level of resistance, if we can clear the resistance that we hit right here, which I think we're likely going to. Now, the head and shoulders, again, could give us a bigger dump. That happens, and we see the weekly signals turn bearish. Then you got a possible top with that peak. My guess is that's not going to be the case. I think this is a wave 4. It may not be done yet. Listen carefully. We may go lower and then still rebound back up. Still think you're going to see new all-time highs on Bitcoin. Bitcoin was down. Let me just bring it up here again. With about 5 hours, just over 5 hours left of the trading session, we are down over 6% from the previous day's close on Sunday, which was a doji. We had a little bit of a bounce there. We were down. We tried to rally up. We stalled up the 20-period moving average there. The blue line, the red line is a 10. And we sold off, and we had this push down to these trend lines right here, and we sold off by over 6% right here from that previous day's close, and we are currently down, rebounding back up, getting a bottoming tail. We'll see how we close by the end of the session. We're currently down 2.64%. That may change dramatically by the time we close. We may close weak, we may close strong. We'll see what happens. But again, going to be watching to see, do we break this level with the inflation data, with the PPI and CPI inflation data in the next 2 days? Hit the 200 or get something uglier, moving back towards 74,000, the target level, or the 200? Or do we try to bottom in here surrounding our 100-period moving average? We'll be watching closely. Again, please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. I don't have any sponsors. I turn all those offers down because I don't want to sell you a bunch of stuff. They contact me all the time, and I'm all down. Exchanges want to get you leveraged up to wipe you out. So I just ask that you partner with me and support channel directly rather than trying to sell you a bunch of stuff. But I do need your help in order to make it work. If you could partner with me by following the link below to take you to a secured site, and you can donate any amount you want or make it a recurring donation. If you do that, I thank you. If you could take a moment to do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration for that. Again, I've made it very clear that I think that this is a corrective move. And again, just want to make it clear, again, we could get a bigger pullback still and still have another push higher. If we bottom out around this area, a little bit lower at the 100 period, or go down to the 20-week moving average, a little bit lower than that, deeper, I still think we're going to get this wave 5 push higher. But like I said, again, we're going to end up hitting the upper end of this channel, and I think that that will be a 5. I think we've got wave 4 going on right here. We hit the trend lines I've talked about, and we got this reaction. I think it's wave 4. It's going to be followed by new all-time highs, the final phase of the blow-off top to complete the top. And when we have that, everybody's going to go, oh, here we go. And then the bottom is going to fall out of Bitcoin. It did in 21, where it dropped in November. The coming weeks ahead, it dropped 52%, dropped really, really fast. And I think you're going to see something very similar to that here. We're going to move into a long-term bearish phase, but I think that the peak is going to be right here, major resistance. I think this is for wave 5, as I've said. And again, I think we have a larger 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think this whole thing with the breakout of the bull flag is wave 5. And I think it's a 5-leg structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll get wave 5 into that upper channel line. These channels in the weekly time frame seem to form over and over again. Talked about the possibility of the risk being that this is a peak right here and it's close but no cigar, like over here. we didn't come back to the trend line. We never did reach it again. That's possible. Hey, sorry about that. I had to take a phone call real fast. But look, again, I think we're going to get this final push higher. Everybody's going to get extremely bullish when that happens. We're probably going to get a massive rug pull. It'll probably be the cycle top for Bitcoin. Why would Bitcoin sell off? Because recession is coming and Bitcoin's going to price in that recession. We've never had a real recession where Bitcoin has been in existence. We've had a little blip in 2020 that was papered over with stimulus. We're going to get a real recession and a real bear market in the stock market, and Bitcoin's going to have its first bear market where the stock market is having a bear market at the same time. That's never happened before. Last major bear market we had for the stock market was back in 2007, 8, and bottomed out in 2009, before Bitcoin existed. I don't know how Bitcoin will perform. And all these people talk, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to 500,000, $1 million, 700,000. Well, they're ignoring recession indicators that are telling us we're about to have a recession. I don't know how Bitcoin's going to perform in a legitimate recession. It gave us all the stimulus last time that gave us all this inflation. So again, with the stock market moving into recession hitting, we're likely going to see a major collapse in Bitcoin once this cycle finishes. Probably go back and take out the low made in 2022 and hit the trend line that I've talked about. Signals turn back to bullish. Inflation data, I'll make another video. Let you know that in the next day or two if we start seeing the signals turn back to bullish. Check back tomorrow, and if signals do turn back to bullish, I'll make a video. But if don't, then check back on Wednesday with the CPI, and I'll update you then. Watch the video all the way through. I've got more important things to share with you. But again, I am of the opinion Bitcoin is still going to move to new all-time highs. We're at this level of VWAP support I've been talking about. We just moved just beyond it, and you're hitting this lower end of the support level, this support zone right here. If we break this level, you've got the 100 period, you get this next VWAP going back from the higher low right here, which was at our 100 period moving average on the daily chart. That was that VWAP support level right there. So we might find support around the 100 if we do break this level. This level might hold a support, but if we end up taking out the 100 period and not being able to get back above it, not bouncing off of it, there's not much in the way of support right here. There's not much in the way of support in this area. That, again, the 74,000 area, the peak over here at 73,700 could be tested if we end up losing the 100 period and staying below it, getting a bigger dump right here, and that would allow the head and shoulders target to play out around 74,000, and our next level of support comes into play at that area, just below that area, at our 69,000 range, 69, 70,000 area, which was where our breakout point was. So again, we move back there, sure. Not much of the way in way of support here, but could we find a bottom here or a little bit lower and try to get a fake out, a little head fake below this area, but then rebound back up above it and complete an ABC structure to go and get our final phase of the blow off top. VWAP support, we're trying to bounce just below VWAP support here, but got back above the red line, which again is from the breakout point right here. The red line from the breakout point right here, and the pullback was the black line right there. We're trying to bounce off the red line, which was our breakout point, the breakout point right here of the downward trend line. Trying to bounce off this horizontal support, and again, we still may go lower towards that 100 period moving average and towards this next level. VWAP level of support. So keep that in mind, but we are hitting the trend line. I talked about my last update. The weekly charts are still bullish. Some momentum signals are now starting to turn bearish. Could be forming a topping process. That could be suggesting a topping process, but we may, again, as I've said, hit this lower end of the rainbow cloud or just move beyond it and hit the critical mass line bounce. We're still seeing the balance of power positive here, and we're going to end up getting a push higher, but like I said, the sell-off may not be over. Again, listen carefully. The sell-off may not be over. Do I think we're going to go make a new all-time high? Yes, but the sell-off may not be over. We've got in my indicators these bullish divergences that are probably going to carve out still may end up tagging or overthrowing that 100 period moving average. Again, we're tagging it with the linear scaling. We're tagging it. We're trying to bounce. Okay, as we've talked about, the 100 period is a little bit lower. This is the linear scaling. The log scaling, the trend line from this low to this low is the trend line we're bouncing off of. The log scaling is a little bit different. I look at both. Some people look at one or the other. Most people just look at this linear scaling. That's why we're probably bouncing off that trend line. Gain important information from the log scaling as well. Again, back when I was talking about the divergences here, the triple divergence is set up right here. The weekly chart of Bitcoin was slamming into the trend line of resistance. Two of them was telling us, here we go. They got extremely bullish. They told us this wasn't going to happen, and yet here it is. Again, it still may not be over. Again, you may still get that larger ABC structure, or it may be concluding here near the trend line. We'll be watching, or again, a little bit deeper and then come back up. But I think you're going to form a bottom surrounding our 100 period moving average, just above it now, or at it, or just slightly below it. Heard, again, told us this wasn't going to happen. Now they're very, very bearish. Again, I think you're going to end up moving to new all-time highs probably here in the first quarter. So keep this trend line in mind. Let's take a look at the log scaling. This is a linear scaling here just above the trend line, just above our 100 period moving average. Here's our log scaling. And again, here's our divergences over here on the RSI. We broke down. We came back to horizontal support. We came back to this trend line right here. And we are now breaking it with the log scaling. With the linear scaling, that same trend line, we're bouncing off of it. If we go lower, our 100 period, we have a trend line right here. If I exclude the shadow, this point right here and this point right here, this black trend line right here, just below our 100 period with our log scaling, if we go a little bit lower and maybe take out that 100 period, the red trend line also comes into play again, would give us a bigger sell-off, including the shadow there, again, below that 100 period moving average. Our 200 is at the horizontal support level, and then this longer-term trend line from 49,000 from the August low and the September low at 52,000. So again, we'll be watching these levels. Should we try to get a bigger sell-off again? I think you're going to get a likelihood of fake out move with the head and shoulders and go higher. But let me be clear again. My daily signals are bearish. Okay, signals are correct. Bearish. Back up here after the peak, and then they tried to turn back to bullish with momentum, and it failed. You'd be watching for a lower high for the right shoulder. Signals, which are correct, have to turn back to bullish. They have to turn back to bullish if we're going to get a rebound back up. The risk is we have a top there. Yes, that's not going to be the case, but I told you about this reaction. I told you about that resistance level, and it's played out, and we've now dropped 17%. And again, the herd told us that wasn't going to happen. The negative divergence is here on the RSI as we hit that resistance level, and here on the MACD. But look at what the MACD is doing in the price oscillator. Look what they're doing now. They're forming a bullish divergence. I've been warning you about this. And again, we hit the trend lines with the linear scaling as we looked at earlier, and we're forming these bullish divergences. So here on the price oscillator, and this is the MACD right here. Maybe the divergence isn't done yet. Again, we still could go down to these levels. So I hope you hear what I'm saying. My signals are bearish, but I think that they will eventually bottom out, will form a bottom with Bitcoin, eventually attempt a recovery and new all-time highs with Bitcoin. I don't think it's likely that Bitcoin is going to rebound once this correction is done and move back to this upper channel line and end up forming a divergence here probably in the first quarter. That could drag out. It may be that we get a very rapid, quick rally into late January on into early February with the Fed. As the Fed meeting in January, late January, so over 2 weeks from now, it could be it drags out over the first quarter into a March high. I still think you're moving up into this trend line right here, and then I think Bitcoin will reach that level probably about 120, 125,000. If we take longer to do it, then the trend line goes further right to the higher. The trend line goes higher, further right to the chart we go. Trend line's a target, not a number. Currently, if we reach it here in January, February, the target would be about 120 to 125,000. This is the trend line I warned you about. Again, we're turning off of this trend line from the 2021 low. And again, we turned off of it. Same thing with the trend line here from 2017. This is a linear scaling. We turned off of this trend line from these highs over here. And again, if we connect the peak right here to this peak right here, again, that's going to take us up towards the 100, and why didn't I draw that very straight? That would take us up towards that 120, 125,000 area. If we include the shadow from this peak right here, we still may, again, go a little lower or hit this level and then still climb up there with this trend line right here. And that would be near that log scaling trend line of the channel that I've talked about. Then I think a divergence will develop here on the RSI in the most recent price action, a larger one over here. And I think that, again, you'll see these divergences develop. MACD is moving higher, but the price oscillator, momentum oscillator, they're not. They're still forming these divergences. So I think we have the final phase of the blow-off top coming. And let me just say it again. I've been talking about, again, how, again, we could bottom with one inflation report, rebound with the other. We might sell off further with the PPI data and rebound with the CPI data, but we'll be watching to see if Bitcoin tries to bottom around the levels I've been talking about. Again, we continue to see the 10-year yield rally, and currently it's pretty much slightly higher today. It's up 0.13%, but we've seen the 10-year rally, and again, it has a negative correlation at the moment with the stock market. And if we begin to see with the inflation data it come down out of the stratosphere, then we might try to see a bottom with the stock market and Bitcoin. We may still go lower with both before that happens, but we're forming bullish divergences on intraday charts, 4-hour chart for Bitcoin and the 60-minute chart for the S&P, and the divergences could, and we're seeing some bullish divergences on daily signals as well. That be the catalyst for a rally if we get the inflation reports at the bottom. We'll be watching closely. The risk is Bitcoin still goes to 74,000 with the head and shoulders playing out. The herd is getting extremely bearish. We're seeing fear show back up. We're seeing bearish sentiment. And again, they weren't this way back at the December top. I warned you. Again, bullish divergences. When we got the bounce over here, I told you, watch, we're going to get a lower high, and we're either going to come back and we're going to get a higher low, or we're going to get a lower low and move towards the 100 period moving average and the trend lines I've been talking about. And again, we're hitting the trend line right now. If we break it, which you'll see if you watch the video all the way through, break it, we will go down towards that 100 period. But in the daily time frame, which again is major support. But look at the divergence. I warned you about divergences developing here. If we had a lower high setup and went down to a lower low for an ABC structure that may not be done yet. It's possible it is finishing, but it may not be done yet. Again, I think you will bottom out here. Maybe you bottom out with the PPI and try to rally with the CPI, with the relief rally. We'll see what happens. Sometimes it works out that way, where one report is a sell-off and the other is a rebound. The bullish divergences are developing on the 4-hour chart. They're developing on the daily chart. So I still think that once this move is done, I think we're going to go higher. The herd told us, oh no, there's no sell-off that's going to happen here, and yet the divergences told us here on the 4-hour chart, on the daily chart with the RSI, and I warned you about it, hitting the major trend line of resistance at that time. Linear log scaling, you could see that if you watch the video all the way through. And again, we got a reaction off those trend lines. I warned you. Now had a sharp sell-off. May not be done yet. But when it's done, I think we're likely going to go to new highs. Now, it's still possible we have a top. I'm open-minded to that. I am looking for a top, but I still think it's very, very possible Bitcoin moves to 120 to 125,000, which is the current target level of the trend line that I'm watching. And if we take longer to reach it in the first quarter, target's going to go a little bit higher, but the trend line is the target. Bullish divergences are forming, just like the herd was so bullish up here when these divergences, bearish divergences were forming. Now, a lot of them extremely bearish. One guy on the internet, oh, we're going to collapse. Now, and these same people back at the peak of December were extremely bullish. That's what the herd does. Again, they're very emotional. When you were slamming in the trend line, we were going to get a sell-off. They were extremely bullish. Now we've had the sell-off. Now that after the sell-off has happened here, now they turn very bearish. That's what the herd does. Maybe we get a bigger sell-off. We'll see. Signals remain bearish. We will. But I'm just telling you, we've got a lot of bullish divergences that are developing on the 4-hour chart and in the daily time frame that I think is going to produce a bottom surrounding the inauguration, which is this coming Monday, Inauguration Day. If we had a rally ahead of it, it could be a sell the news event. But I told you that if we sold off ahead of it, and we can resume the Trump pump, likely get the final phase of the blow off top. Also on the 4-hour time frame, I think we're forming bullish divergences on the RSI and the MACD. They may not be done yet. Again, we may get closer to that 100 period moving average. Watch the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. I think you got a shot at a bottom. We got to get that 50 back above the 200, price of back above the 200. If that happens, we get a big rally and we get back above the 200 and go above 100,000, then the advance can resume. Shoulders might be a fake out if we find support surrounding our 100 period moving average, not able to make it back to 74,000. Possible that happens. If it does, then there's a chance that we have a peak right here. If we start seeing weekly signals all begin to turn back to bearish, and that next rally ends up not being able to move above this high, the next big rally that we get once this sell-off is done. My signals turn back to bearish after we hit that resistance level. We got the doji in the daily time frame. We began to sell off. We got the rebound. We got these bullish signals. I told you got a shot at a bottom there if we can get a higher low. And if not, you probably got a larger ABC that could take us back towards a 100 period moving average. I told you to be watching for this bullish divergence to set up here. We couldn't see momentum go into the positive territory, and it's setting up on a lot of indicators in the daily time frame and on the 4-hour charts. Again, the sell-off may not be done yet. We still may go lower, and it may be that we bottom out with the inflation data over the next 2 days. We'll see what happens. I think you got a shot that a bottom forms as we go into Inauguration Day. Again, listen carefully. I'm not saying a new all-time high on Inauguration Day. I'm saying a rally as we go into it that will take us to a new all-time high. If somebody say, oh, we're going to make a new all-time high on Inauguration Day, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we can bottom out and get a rally going into Inauguration Day and continue the rally towards 120, towards 125,000. Some people cherry pick and pick and choose what they want to hear, say things and clarify things. I think we got a wave 4. Is that clear enough? And I think once wave 4 is done, my signals remain bearish. Is that clear enough? You can see my signals here. My signals are bearish. My signals are correct. Oh, gee. The top right here, we reversed off of the trend line of resistance. It warned us. Oh, it was correct. Oh, another top over here. The lower high, the bottom here. Signals are correct. Again, the signals still could take us lower. They're still bearish. Are we all on the same page? Just happen to believe we're in an ABC corrective move, and I think we're going to see a wave 5 follow. Bitcoin to 120 to 125,000. Final phase of the blow off top. And the risk is we have a head and shoulders. The risk is that it measures down to this 200 period here, near the 74,000 area. The risk is that we get that bigger drop. If we can bottom around here, you got a good shot. We're going to go make new highs. So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Let me be clear. Again, my signals remain bearish. Okay, I think they're going to turn back to bullish soon because of the bullish divergences that are forming. 6% sell-off. We're trying to recover a little bit. We'll see how we close. Could we go lower? Yes. In that trend line I talked about, my last few updates, we're hitting that trend line, watching to see what happens. Weekly time frame, we're now getting, with this week's sell-off, as we start this week, we're getting this T for term momentum. Oftentimes, you'll get that, and then you'll go make a new high. And again, I think that's going to be the case here. Trend is still bullish in the weekly, but the momentum line's trying to turn back to bearish again. So could we still form a divergence on indicators? I think that's very, very possible. Could it be? Those trend lines do give us a top, though, if we start seeing weekly signals all begin to turn back to bearish. Again, momentum here flip back to bullish near the bottom. Here, again, in the sideways move and the topping process over here, before we got a bigger sell-off, we went from red to blue, back to blue. We got a lower high there, but again, you could still see the same thing here with a higher high. And the risk is that we have a top at these trend lines, stop making new highs, and weekly signals all turn back to bullish. I think we're still going to end up trying to get one more push higher. My daily signals are bearish. Trend signals are bearish, but some momentum signals are starting to turn now. We'll see what happens. Bitcoin's down 2.39% for the week. Again, we were down as much as 6% at the lows to start the week off. Again, I'm watching this channel. We're turning off the trend line here. This is our log scaling. We're turning off the one from the linear scaling we just saw. We're turning off the one from the log scaling here. Talked about these trend lines, warned you about them when the herd said, no, we're not going. There's nothing taking Bitcoin down, and yet those trend lines did. Talked about it at great length and detail. If we go lower, you've got your 20-week moving average way down here. That was just below our 100-day moving average. So again, I'm watching the 20-week. Bitcoin follows the 20-week, the blue line. In the weekly, it follows the 100 in the daily. If we find a bottom here, if we have an ABC move, I think we still eventually move up to this upper channel line. If we take our time reaching it, you're going to go a lot higher. If we hit it, here late January on into February, you might go to, again, as high as 125,000. It depends on when you reach it. We had weeks and weeks here where we moved close to it, but we failed to reach it, and we stalled at this other trend line. So I think if we can get back above it, you've got this larger channel. But the rally drags out, again, could go through the first quarter here. Could we see something like what we had here from January to March back in early 2024, where we had volatility, but then we still got a March rally, March high of the 69,000 area, and got a top there, for many, many months. Over here, we got a January to March rally. Some volatility just ahead of January. So again, the price action in months changes, but could we see something like this similar to this right here, where we had some volatility and then we got a rally, had some volatility, and then we get the rally towards that 120,000 area? I think that's very, very, very possible. Could we get a repeat of this, where we had from in October to December this run up, October to December this run up, this pullback here surrounding January and the December peak there that we recently had here? We peaked in January. We pull back a little bit, and then we get one more push higher. We pull back a little bit, we get one more push higher. Could that be? Very well. It very well could be the case. And there's a pattern that's going on right now where you have months from January to March and April to September, you've had the volatility, but it changes. Look at the downtrend from the peak off of 2021 down to the 2022 low. It would be a little bit different. That's what's a pattern that's going on right now. Could we get a rally here into the end of quarter one, or here before quarter one ends? Very possible. Here into the end of quarter one for 2025.